Arirang Prime.
Some 1.2 billion people in the world live in dire poverty. What can we do to help them? Korean agricultural system has emerged as a solution to world poverty. The very growth model that helped Korea achieve astounding development, Korean agriculture is sowing the seeds of hope in impoverished land. A popular tourist destination in Asia, the Philippines. But the gap between the rich and poor is hampering the country's growth. San Felipe is about 6-hour drive from the capital, Manila. It's a small, scenic city with a population of 20,000 people, including Aborigines and city dwellers. San Felipe residents make a living mainly by farming and fishing. Rice cultivation is the main industry here. On the outskirts of San Felipe is Balingcaking village. A big change has occurred here recently. The villagers began raising pigs. For a small farm, there are many hands working here.
Marami po itong baboy namin. 20 po. Mahirap linisan.
Naka-schedule po talaga. Apat po. Apat na membro po.
28 households split into teams of 4 to take care of the pigs. It's their first experience with collective farming.
Sampung baboy. Malilit na baboy po. Anong last year po yun?
September yata.
September po. Umpisa po September hanggang ngayon po, naparami po namin. Ngayon po, 20. Dati 10. Dati 10 po. Ngayon na dagdagan na po namin, naging 20 na po ngayon.
They share their profits evenly and save a certain amount in their common fund, which they want to use later to expand the farm.
Yung iba lang po, yung pong may kaya na makakabili po at mag-aalaga po sila ng sarili nilang mga ganyang livelihood po. Pero yung mga mahihirap po na hindi po walang pambili, hindi makayanan, kaya po naisipan po namin na lumapit kay Mayor na magkaroon po kami ng ganitong livelihood program.
Ito picture kasi si yung president tsaka treasurer.
Over the past year, the villagers sold 13 pigs, earning nearly 10,000 pesos.
Kaya ito siya, open account siya. Masaya lalo na yung mga membro. Masaya sila dahil kasi kumita yung pinagpaguran nila nung makabenta sila. Siyempre masaya sila kasi alam nila na lumaki yung pera nila sa bangko. Kaya ito lahat binabangko para hindi magalaw ng kahit na sino. Pag gusto lang maglabas, pupunta sa bangko, mag-withdraw. Kaya ito yung kanya dito, parang ganito siya. Yung withdrawal slip niya.
The word Saemaeul written in Korean catches the eye. These people launched this collective farm after adopting Korea's Saemaeul Movement.
Lahat po, yun po ang nagsimula. Nagsimula po kami sa 10 na binigay sa amin na livelihood. Kasama na po yung mga pagkain. Kami na po yung nagpatayo ng kulungan. Kami po sama-sama po kaming gumawa. Nagkaisa po kami para magkaroon po ng kulungan at ibinigay na po yung 10 baboy na simula po doon po nagsimula yung livelihood namin.
Saemaeul, or New Community Movement, national movement initiated in the 1970s when Korea was struggling financially in order to improve people's living standards and increase their income. Saemaeul movement first began in rural areas and later spread to factories, cities, and the Korean society at large, triggering modernization. Collaborative efforts help villages develop farming techniques and rapidly modernize their communities. As a result, Korea overcame poverty at an astounding speed and joined the ranks of developed nations.
그 가난 극복의 소득 증대, 결국은 새마을은 운동은 마을마다의 성공 사례를 모아놓은 것이 새마을 운동입니다. 그러니까 현재 있는 마을과 결연을 하고 또 기술을 전수하고 현지 봉사를 해서 실천하는 모습을 보여줍니다.
The Saemaeul movement has drawn the spotlight recently as a growth model for developing and emerging countries. So far, 32 villages in 13 countries have adopted the movement, and more than 1,000 people from 39 countries visit Korea every year to learn about it.
우리나라의 가난을 극복한 새마을 운동, 또 새마을 운동 세계화를 통해서 대한민국에 함께하는 선중으로 가는 길목에 함께 있습니다. 우리가 잘 살아서 그런 것이 아니라 가난을 극복한 소중한 경험이 있기 때문에 새마을 세계화를 구체적으로 추진 중에 있습니다.
San Felipe II adopted the Saemaeul movement a year ago to help its residents fight poverty.
Program, we saw the spirit behind Saemaeul Undong. We embraced it also because we want to improve our lives. We want to improve our town, and that it's within our same vision. That the key to progress is really all about cooperation, unity, and helping one another. Nobody else can help one another, help you, but yourself and your community.
The first village to adopt it is Balingkaking. What changes have occurred in the village since the movement was adopted? First off, the villagers have completely changed their farming techniques. They now make fertilizer firsthand.
Puno ng saging. Tapos i-spray niya rito, ikakalat niya. Para kasi yan malamig siya. Nilagay siya rito para kapag nilagay mo na yung bulate, tamang-tama lang yung moisture content niya kasi pag sobrang init naman ito at nilagay mo na yung bulate kasi
The villagers raise worms using banana trees, which are abundant in Balingkaking. Manure produced by worms is safe enough to be used in crop farming. Moreover, it doesn't pollute the environment.
ito na siya, yung mga nabulok na yan. Ito na yung parang yung tae o waste ng bulate. Ito na yung kinain ng bulate siya nung tumain yung bulate. Ito na yung tae ng bulate na galing dyan, nabulok.
The villagers already enjoyed one successful harvest using this organic fertilizer.
pamahal na ng pamahal yung chemical fertilizer. Kaya dapat lang na ito ang tangkilikin ng mga tao para makamura sila, ligtas pa sa chemical residue sa mga tao.
Most of the villagers are involved in rice cultivation. Some of them have never used fertilizers because they are too expensive. Worm fertilizer produced in Balikaking is sold to neighboring villages as well. Farmers in neighboring villages like it because it's much cheaper than chemical fertilizers. To the residents of Balikaking, worm manure is now a lucrative source of income.
Pagkatapos gumagamit ng pataba ito, mas madami kukuha ng harvest.
Harvest,
Mas madami kukuha nyo.
Magandang bunga ng magandang ani.
Since using this fertilizer, farms have seen their harvest more than double. As the farmers' income started to grow, so did their enthusiasm. The entire village is more vibrant these days.
Nung dati kasi, nung pumutok ang pinatubo, talagang wala. Hindi maganda ang lupa, hindi maganda ang ani, kasi puros buhangin siya. Pero habang tumatagal at may inaano rin na mga organiko na inaano ng aming mayor, binibigay o tinutulong para mapaganda ang lupa dito sa amin. Kaya ngayon, unti-unti nang gumaganda ang ani namin.
In June 1991, San Felipe became mired in poverty after the eruption of Pinatubo volcano. It was the second largest volcanic eruption in the 20th century, resulting in an enormous amount of volcanic deposit and, for the residents, utter poverty and despair. Massive areas of farmland disappeared in a flash, while 40,000 houses collapsed or were buried under ash. Some 250,000 people were displaced and more than 900 died. The volcanic eruption took everything from the villagers in a matter of seconds. The locals built scant wooden shelters to hide from the wind. After losing their farmland, they had to subsist on meager earnings. What used to be a flourishing farming village became a wasteland in no time. The residents were crestfallen.
Mag-ano lang po ng tambo. Ng tambo.
Magtahi lang po ng ganito.
Magtahi lang po ng ganito.
Thanks to the Saemaeul Movement, these people have gained hope. They are confident that they can succeed if they work together. The women in the village are also playing their part by making textiles. Any woman living in the village knows how to weave, so Korea provided the sewing machines and a workspace for them to do needlework. All the goods produced by these women are marked with the initials GB, which represents the name of their village.
Kung gusto mo mas expensive, have to
Use here. Caldero.
Every piece of leftover fabric is recycled. The women learned all this craft from Koreans.
Tinutulong ng mga Koreano, interesado rin sila na lumago yun, tsaka malaking katulungan sa pamilya yun, sa katulad namin dito sa Balingkagin.
This market, located about half an hour away from the village, is where the women personally sell their products made at the textile factory. The proceeds are shared evenly and a certain amount is saved in the common fund. The owner of this rice store willingly made some space for textile products.
Tag niya, yung pangalan niya, Gibi, gawa ng Balingkaging Sewing Factory. Opo. San Felipe, Zambales.
These products became popular through word of mouth.
Is 150 4 pairs.
Goodbye.
Thank you po. Thank you.
By making profits with their handmade products, these ladies gained the motivation to carry on.
Bili na po kayo. Bili po.
Madali. Oo, madali mabinta yan.
Madali benta sila.
Oo.
Araw-araw.
Araw-araw. Mga ganyan, mga 40 pieces hanggang 50 pieces.
The Balingkaging villages have regained confidence. Late in the evening, Mr. Domingo comes home from work. Since the Saemaeul movement was adopted in this village, he has had his hands full. He acts as the chairman of the Saemaeul movement. He is busy all day promoting solidarity among the villagers and visiting their farms. He gets to see his family only late at night before going to bed.
Pagod na pagod. Kunting pagod lang.
Opo, proud po kasi alam ko po na na yung pina-priority niya po talaga yung mga kabarangay po namin. Tapos tinutulungan din po niya.
Naiintindihan ko naman po siya kasi bilang public servant po talagang mas oras po niya talaga doon sa kabarangayan po niya kaysa talagang pamilya po.
He reads until the moment he falls asleep. He received comprehensive training on the Saemaeul movement in Korea.
Na pwede palang yumaman o umangat ang isang tao kung may determinasyon, pagkakaisa at pagtutulungan sa bawat trabaho o bawat adhikain ng isang tao. Pwede palang yumaman o hindi lang sa tao, isang bansa kung may pagkakaisa ang bawat isa.
Now that farming in his village has stabilized, he is looking for ways to develop it further. But initiating the Saemaeul movement in Balingkaging wasn't easy, as villagers were against collective farming.
Yung mga high-tech mobile system ng Korea, communication. Ang umpisa noon dito parang wala lang, hindi nila nung tinuturo nila yung nung nag-uumpisa yung Saemaeul. Inaano ko yung natutunan ko doon sa Korea noon, yung para sa Saemaeul Undong, yung sama-sama. Yan ito. Noong una hindi sila naniniwala. Kumbaga wala lang, hindi sila naniniwala sa sinasabi namin noon. Pero nung palagi kaming meeting saka may video film kami na kung saan nag-umpisa yung nung Saemaeul, parang unti-unti na nung tao, kumbaga natutunan rin nila o kung paano nila tularan at sundin yung kung paano umangat yung kung paano napalaganap yung Saemaeul sa Korea.
It took an entire year to convince the locals of the benefits of joining forces and finding solutions together. One year later, almost a miraculous change occurred. Even those who were against collective farming began to jump on the bandwagon. They contributed their opinions at regular village meetings, and their passive attitude transformed into an organized, proactive one.
Naghahanap ng wala sa atin. Yan po kasi ang dapat natin isip. Ang pangalawa po,
the village is fostering its ability to become financially independent with the help of the Saemaeul Movement.
Lahat ng sinasabi ko, sumusunod sila. Oo. Dahil ikagaganda at ikabubuti naman nila yung ginagawa naming inuutos namin sa kanila. Kaya dito sa amin, yan ang isang adhikain namin, yung mapaganda, mapabuti, at mapaayos lahat ng mga tao dito sa aming nasasakupan dito sa Barangay Balikaging.
The locals have set up a regional farmers league to further develop cooperative projects. They now have confidence in their future because they know that they can overcome hardships together. An agricultural research center in Gyeongsangbuk-do, Korea. A group from the Philippines is paying a visit. They are representatives of Santa Cruz Village, and they come here to learn about the Saemaeul Movement after witnessing its success in Balikaging. The foundation of the Saemaeul Movement lies in changing agriculture. The guests decided to check how Korean agriculture developed through the movement. They showed great interest in Korean state-of-the-art farming technologies and diverse crops. Korea achieved industrialization through agriculture and still developed farming technologies and merges them with IT. In the 21st century, Korea emerged as an agricultural powerhouse, drawing attention from other countries that want to learn its technologies. The Santa Cruz residents want to cultivate Korean crops that can grow well in their native soil and climate. They're hoping that this will enhance their profits. They want to learn the entire cultivation process and plant the seeds used in Korea. They are confident about their success.
The lecture you've given us, really it was inculcated in my mind that everything must be adapted in our province so that our community will become progressive like Saemaeul Undong here.
I have learned from the techniques that I observed during the lectures that the area that to be planted by rice should be flat, the water should be controlled, and the distance of palisades should be measured in order that they will grow well and to attain good harvest.
Korea provides its crops to the countries that have adopted the Saemaeul Movement. It develops and supplies seeds that can grow well in the local climate and give high-quality crops. After many countries succeeded in farming with the help of the Saemaeul Movement, other countries began to show interest as well. One such country is Vietnam. More than 70% of Vietnam's population is engaged in agriculture. Quite recently, a special event was held in Hanoi. It was the Korea-Vietnam Food Festival 2013. First launched in 2008, the festival showcases Korean foods and ingredients that are popular in Vietnam, as well as the latest hit products in Korea. The festival is gaining more popularity among locals by the year.
일찍부터 아시아에서 한류가 빨리 상륙하고 널리 퍼져 있고 이것을 계기로 한식 문화도 자연스럽게 이쪽에 자리를 잡는 계기가 되었습니다.
Kimchi is the most sought-after Korean food in Vietnam. The kimchi section claimed the most attention at this festival. Many Vietnamese women visited the booth to try their hands at making it.
Đây là một món ăn truyền thống rất là ngon ạ, và người Việt Nam đang rất là nhiều người đang học tập cách làm món kim chi và là món ăn phổ biến trong gia đình người Việt Nam rồi.
Vietnamese people are quite familiar with kimchi because there is a similar food in their cuisine as well. The spicy taste of Korean kimchi has captivated the palates of many Vietnamese people.
맛이 어떠세요?
Tại vì mình ăn thế, tại vì mình thích vị cay của nó và mình thích ăn nó không còn bị ngấy nữa.
This year, various kinds of kimchi, aside from the most common Napa cabbage kimchi, were shown at the food festival. Napa cabbage, radish, onion, and other ingredients used in kimchi are all cultivated locally using Korean seeds.
김치 만드는데 99%는 베트남 현지 재료로 가능합니다. 단지 한 가지 고춧가루만 한국에서 가져와야 되는 거예요. 그 외에는 전부 현지에서 가능합니다.
So how are Korean vegetables cultivated in Vietnam? This farm, located within an hour's drive from Hanoi, mostly grows vegetables. Vietnamese farmers grow several kinds of crops in one field and harvest them 3 or 4 times a year. Most of the local farms are small. All the vegetables grown in this farm are cultivated using seeds brought from Korea.
Năm ngoái trồng giống Hàn Quốc thì trồng 7 loại cây: bí ngô, ớt, cà rốt, củ cải, khoai tây, cây gì đây? Cây hành.
It's a pilot farm for cultivating Korean vegetables. Its farmers collaborate with Korean agricultural researchers.
이게 나타나는 이유는 진하게 비를 주면은 이게 농도 장애로다 이렇게 일시적으로 잎이 이렇게 축엽 현상이라 해서 이런 증상이 나오는 거예요. 고추의 지금 현재 발육 상태는 썩 좋다고 볼 수는 없습니다. 저희 한국에서 고추를 키우면 지금 한 4번째 방아다리 정도까지 나왔을 때 키가 한 이 정도 80cm 정도는 자랐어야 되는데 현재 뭐 한 5, 60% 수준밖에 지금 잘 못 자라는 것 같습니다.
The Korean researchers monitor how Korean vegetables acclimate to Vietnam's environment. The pilot project is already in its 3rd year now. But even the strongest seeds sometimes fail to grow in a new environment. Therefore, it's important to select crops that can adapt well to Vietnam's climate and environment. After countless trials and errors, the researchers succeeded in cultivating more than 10 kinds of vegetables.
본격적으로 채소 공동 연구를 시작한 거는 한 3년 전부터 시작을 했는데 앞으로 2년까지는 더 해야 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 지금까지 성과를 보면은 고추, 도마도, 양파, 무, 상추, 호박 그런 작목은 좀 아주 성과를 거두고 있어서 베트남 농민들로부터도 호응을 받고 있습니다.
Several varieties of chili peppers were brought to Vietnam, where they are high in demand.
보다 한 2배 정도는 더 커야 됩니다. 2배 정도는 더 커야지 이제 정상인데 지금 이제 적과 작업을 위해서 이렇게 지금 따놨습니다.
Korean and Vietnamese researchers have yet to figure out how to grow Korean peppers in Vietnam, whose subtropical climate is so different from the climate of Korea, which has 4 distinct seasons. Disseminating the seeds of Korean vegetables in other countries is a difficult process. Cultural differences is another factor. In Korea, tomatoes are harvested when they are completely red, but Vietnamese farmers harvest their tomatoes before they are ripe. Researchers must take into account both environmental and cultural differences to succeed in the cultivation of Korean vegetables abroad.
Thì trong 4 năm hợp tác nghiên cứu với Hàn Quốc thì Viện Nghiên cứu Rau quả đã nhận được rất là nhiều hạt giống của các công ty giống của Hàn Quốc. Tổng cộng là hơn 600 giống của 16 loại cây trồng. Thế thì chúng tôi thấy là tất cả những cái nhìn chung thì tất cả những cái giống cây trồng của Hàn Quốc thì đều có năng suất rất là cao. Có thể cao hơn năng suất của những cái giống Việt Nam đang trồng hiện tại được khoảng
Korean researchers have been developing Korean seeds for Vietnamese farms for nearly 3 years at the Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Sciences. They are COPIA employees who were dispatched here by Korea Rural Development Administration.
지금 저희들이 현재 약 8개 그 연구 과제를 가지고 합동으로 연구를 하고 있는데 다양한 작목들에 대한 연구 또 이게 농업 기술 이전을 효과적으로 할 수 있는 그런 모델 개발이라든지 이런 다양한 그 연구 과제들을 추진하고 있습니다.
COPIA, an overseas agricultural technology development center set up by the Rural Development Administration to help developing nations fight poverty and maximize profits using Korean technologies. Currently, the center performs its activities in 15 countries.
특히 저희들은 그 후진국 개발도상국의 그 과정을 거쳐서 선진국으로 그 진입을 하였기 때문에 이 후진국들이 가지고 있는 어떤 농업 문제를 해결할 수 있는 역량을 저희들이 갖췄다고 이렇게 생각이 됩니다. 그래서 코피아 사업을 통해서 후진국의 그 농업 개발과 농업 과학 기술 역량의 증진에 보탬이 되는 그런 좋은 일들을 하고 있습니다.
Another reason for the popularity of Korean agricultural produce in Vietnam, the rapidly increasing demand for Korean food. This Korean supermarket is the largest of its kind in Ho Chi Minh. It sells all kinds of products imported from Korea. Its primary customers used to be ethnic Koreans. But as the popularity of Korean cuisine soared, now the supermarket has more Vietnamese customers than Koreans.
Đến đây thường em hay mua kim chi ạ. Vâng. Một phần giới trẻ là thích K-pop, thích nhiều.
But not everyone in Vietnam can afford Korean produce. It costs 2 to 3 times more than local produce because it's entirely imported from Korea.
Một ngày riêng kim chi nhập khẩu từ Hàn Quốc về thì chắc là tầm hơn chục cân đấy. Một ngày thì bán ra tầm khoảng 10 đến 20 gói đấy ạ.
But now, local farms are also growing Korean vegetables thanks to the seeds brought from Korea. This farm has been cultivating Korean pumpkin and radish for nearly a year after receiving seeds from the Vietnam Academy of Agricultural Sciences.
Bí ngô của Việt Nam thì chưa thấy có.
The Academy lets the residents grow vegetables on their own and discover for themselves the advantages and disadvantages of the crops. Farmers who grow Korean vegetables use them widely in cooking.
Tốt, khỏe hơn. Giống người tốt khỏe hơn so với lại giống của Việt Nam.
But the origin of the ingredients didn't change the way Vietnamese people cook their food. Have Korean vegetables changed Vietnamese cuisine? They say their food tastes better because Korean vegetables are fresher and have better quality. The entire family likes them. What's more, these days, Vietnamese people are paying more attention to their health and diet. And they find that Korean products can satisfy their needs.
Cái bí ngô này thì so với đỏ Việt Nam thì ăn ngọt hơn và mềm hơn, dễ ăn hơn. Nó có vị thơm. Thế còn bí đỏ thì nó không thơm bằng cái này.
Bí đỏ thì
By growing Korean vegetables for themselves, this household gets enough yield to also sell the products. Even a small amount of produce brings in ample profits because Korean vegetables are twice as expensive as local ones. Recently, demand has even exceeded supply as more and more market merchants are now turning to Korean vegetables.
giá cả rau Hàn Quốc thì cũng đắt hơn rau mới đầu ấy, thì nó cũng mọi người chưa biết, thế nhưng mà khi người biết đến thì người ta ưa chuộng hơn là rau ở Việt Nam.
It's been less than 3 years since Korean seeds were first introduced in Vietnam, but Korean vegetables already rule the market, becoming a lucrative source of income for the merchants.
베트남의 입장에서는 한국의 그 우수한 그 작물과 종자들을 가져와서 더 값싸고 수량이 많고 품질이 좋은 그런 농산물을 그 생산할 수 있다는 그런 그 이점이 있고요. 그래서 농업인들의 소득을 높여줄 수 있는 이점이 있고요. 우리 한국의 입장에서는 그런 한국의 좋은 그 농작물을 베트남에서 재배를 하게 된다면은 한국의 그 종자 회사들이 이곳에 그 좋은 씨앗을 이렇게 팔 수 있는 그런 해외 진출의 기회를 열게 됩니다.
In addition to the joint research on vegetable seeds, Korea and Vietnam have launched collaboration in a new field. They are developing biofuel to boost Vietnam's economic growth. The two countries are working on producing biodiesel from cacao and sugarcane grown in Vietnam. Currently, the researchers are selecting varieties that contain much oil.
Trong quá trình hợp tác với Hàn Quốc thì dự án đã cho tạo ra được những giống mới, và giống mới này đang được phát triển cho nông dân Trung Du và miền núi phía Bắc Việt Nam. Và cái diện tích này đã mở rộng ra hàng nghìn hectare.
Nhưng mà đây có nước rồi gì?
Bioenergy, or replacing petroleum with diesel or alcohol produced from trees, flowers, and other plants. The whole world is in a race to develop bioenergy these days as global warming and depleting energy resources are becoming a real threat. Vietnam is no exception. It has been cultivating pilot crops in cooperation with Korea to develop biofuel. Cassava trees have shown the best results so far.
Cây sắn này là nằm trong cái dự án của làm cây nhiên liệu sinh học. Việt Nam bây giờ là sắn là chiếm diện tích khoảng trên 500.000 hectare.
Korean researchers have also discovered potential in various plants. By promoting research on bioenergy, Vietnam can become an energy superpower and catapult its economic growth. Korea and Vietnam are working together to help Vietnam achieve economic prosperity.
Chúng tôi thấy là trong 4 năm vừa qua, hợp tác với Hàn Quốc, đặc biệt là ADA, trong lĩnh vực nông nghiệp thì thấy có hai hợp phần chính rất quan trọng là hợp phần cây nhiên liệu sinh học và phát triển rau quả Hàn Quốc tại Việt Nam. Thì đối với hợp phần cây nhiên liệu sinh học ấy, thì chúng tôi đã nghiên cứu 5 loại cây mà có sẵn ở Việt Nam, có khả năng cung cấp các cái nguồn nguyên liệu sinh học tự nhiên. Và trong thời gian nghiên cứu 4 năm vừa rồi thì đã rút ra một số cây trồng có thể giúp cho việc sản xuất nhiên liệu sinh học rất là tiềm năng trong thời gian tới.
A wind of change is blowing in Vietnam as the country gears up for a better future with the help of Korean agricultural expertise.
Làm mô hình cho nhiều năm, vài năm nữa, năm liền.
By tilling the land and sowing the seeds, these people refuse to succumb to poverty or be intimidated by the future.
Pwede akong magtanim. Kahit anong gulay, pwede ito sa bukid namin. Wala lang akong binli. Buto, wala.
Gusto namin, yung talagang ikauunlad ng buhay namin, hindi lang ito, kundi may maiiwan kami sa mga, hindi, kasi ito, maiiwan itong mga ito sa mga anak na namin in the future kasi kami papalipas na rin. Gusto namin, yung mga kinabukasan ng aming mga anak ay maibigay namin yung sapat, lalong-lalo na sa edukasyon. Gusto namin mapag-aral yung mga anak namin dahil sila lang yung magiging susi namin para sa ikaunlad in the future na.
They have overcome poverty to create a brighter future for themselves. From the ashes, they found seeds of hope, and now a miracle is sprouting up with all its might in this once impoverished land.